Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is the What's New for Summon in Intota 360 Services webinar. I'm Brent Cook. I'm the Director of Product Management for Summon, and today I'll be walking you through a variety of things related to Summon in Intota and 360 Services. We'll take some time to begin with to review some of the accomplishments we had in 2020. It was a really busy year. We'll talk about content growth, some new functionality that we provided in Summon, and some of the enhancements that came out for the 360 and Intota services. Then we'll look ahead at 2021 and what we have planned there for 360 and Intota. We'll talk some about the February release for Summon coming up in about 2 weeks. And then we'll also talk some about the roadmap. And I'll also give you some information on another upcoming webinar where I focus on the Summon roadmap and provide dates and functionality for the 2020 year. And we'll have some time at the end for questions if you'd like. First, let's take a moment to look at content growth in 2020. So for the Central Discovery Index, or CDI, we added over 420 million records last year, taking us to a total of over 4.2 billion records in the index. And the 360 knowledge base, there are over 33,000 collections and 40 million titles. So that's been a consistent growth, as you can see from that line chart there. Beginning in January of 2017, we were below 3 billion, and now we're at well over 4 billion records in the index. That growth is consistent with some of the years we've had recently, with only 2018 beating us out for the total number of records added to the index, and we expect 2021 to continue that trend. Next, I want to do a little review of some of the highlights of what we did in 2020. I won't cover all the things that we did in 2020, but there were a lot of great things that came out last year. Starting with the launch of the Central Discovery Index, or CDI. It's almost been a year exactly of the launch of CDI. Summon customers were live on that February 5th. This time last year, we were taking a look at it in the preview environment, and a lot came along with that. That included improved performance and an upgrade to Solar 7, a variety of new facets and abilities to sort, some match and merge improvements to help with the deduplication process, the ability to search for authors and co-authors using ORCIDs. So if you type into the Summon search box ORCID : and then the ID, if that author has an ORCID associated with their name in Summon, will return results based on that. And then finally, as we made the move to CDI, we got a lot of new content providers and institutional repositories, as is reflected in that growth in content that you saw in those last slides. So for the new facets we got with CDI, the specific ones were the author-creator facet, the collection or database facet. We also added the ability to sort results by title or by author. These sort options are particularly helpful for shorter lists of search results. Specifically, if you have a title that has a lot of variations or additions, it's a great way to get them there and find what you're looking for, or the same with author names. And then finally, we also did a recently added items facet. For some time now, we've had the ability to limit your results based on a date range. This takes a look at what is new to the index and allows you to facet on that. So to see what's been added in the last week, in the last month, or the last 90 days. To turn these facets on and activate them in your instance of Summon, all you need to do is go into the admin console and in the settings tab under facets on the left-hand side there of the screen grab, just select that. You have the ability to both enable the facets and to change the display, whether they're expanded or collapsed. So if you want to add the author or collection facet, all you need to do is drag that item from the right-hand column disabled into the enabled column, and then in that top facets section, the order in which those facets are listed is the order in which they'll show up in your user interface. Once you've made that change, all you need to do is click on the Save button, which is at the bottom of the screen. We did make a modification to the admin console to improve that as well. In the past, the Save button was all the way down at the very bottom of the screen, and sometimes off the screen. It's now situated directly below the tile itself, so it's easier to see. And then it takes about 5 minutes for those changes to take place in your instance of Summon. So as soon as you save it, wait 5 minutes and it should show up, refresh your user interface, and it should show up there for you. We also made some improvements to our rules for matching and merging various records. This is to reduce the number of duplicates that you might get in your results set. We expanded the types of content that we merge around. Specifically newsletters, we added that to reduce the overall footprint of that content type. We improved the subtitle handling. We have a variety of sort of more strict rules within the title field because their variations there are more likely to indicate a different resource than in the subtitles. And so in subtitles, we loosen the rules a little bit in allowing for things like trailing characters or punctuation differences and things like that will no longer block that type of merge. And these were items that we saw lots of duplicates being reported around. And so we saw a good reduction in them when we applied that rule. We also increased the overmatch limit. In case you're unfamiliar with the overmatch limit is, we basically have some rules in place so that if a large number of records merge, it sets out a warning and may prevent those from merging. That way, titles with very similar names aren't inadvertently combined. A good example of that is the number of poems out there that are untitled. And so if you took every single record that had a title of untitled, you would definitely be merging records that are not matches. So we had it at a lower threshold previously, because of the size of the index and the addition of all the new content and the growth, it made sense to expand that overmatch limit. We also relaxed some of the language matching criteria that was causing a variety of duplications to show up, particularly discrepancies between the language detected and cis language fields. We made some standardizations around punctuation, specifically quotation marks, so that curly quotation marks versus straight quotation marks won't prevent items from merging. We also added some synonyms to our synonym list so that variations such as color with a U versus without a U, those will no longer prevent records from merging. For some overall customers, we added the section number to the course reserves page because the reading lists for any given course can vary by instructor to instructor or section number. It was important to have that level of granularity added to the course reserve page, and this was added to the product last year as well. And I'd like to note that this and a variety of other features that you'll see from last year were part of the new enhancement request system, or NERS. If you're not familiar with that, that's the voting process that we do every year in conjunction with Illuna and Igloo. It is run in addition by them, and we feed information into that. And each year, it's a way that you can have a direct impact on what appears in the roadmap. And last year, we got a lot of great features out of that process. We also did some integration with WhatsApp, which is a common mobile chat client, particularly as we all moved to, or many of us moved to, working remotely and being unable to interact with our patrons in real time and in person. We made it so that if you want to use a WhatsApp chat client, you can do that very easily. You just go into the admin console and enter the phone number that you would like to have associated with your WhatsApp chat. And then when the user sees the chat icon in the user interface, they can click on it, type in a message, and it will automatically start a chat with that WhatsApp client and reach out to you on your end. If you want to move the chat from one phone to another, it's simple to just go in and change that phone number, click save, and again, within about 5 minutes, that will be changed and all chats will go to the new device. Any type of logging or functionality around the chat is part of WhatsApp. That's not integrated within Summon, but it does make it easier so that if you do want to use this for your patrons' experience, you certainly can. We also improved peer review labeling for individual results. Again, this was something that came out of our NERS voting system. It allows you to quickly identify peer-reviewed contents within Summon results by the addition of an icon just below the thumbnail, as you can see here in my screen grab. Previously, we had the open access unlocked padlock icon down there. Now, if results has both of these or one of these icons can show up. It makes it so that it's easier to, at a glance, look at a set of results and find which ones are peer-reviewed. Obviously, you can go and use the peer-reviewed facet and limit to that, but this is a great way to call those pieces out when you have a set of mixed results. So to configure that peer review labeling, what you do is go into the admin console under settings, which is the default tab that you show up in when you access the admin console. Go down to the search results tab and the controls for open access indicator and peer review indicator at the bottom of that tile. Previously, open access was in its own section. We've consolidated it here to make it a little bit easier to find. You'd simply click on the button or the toggle switch on the left, which will go from off to custom, and then set the indicator that you want to on, and then click that save button. And again, within about 5 minutes, that will go live within your site. Another thing that came out of NERS was the idea of having your search refinements persist as you go back and forth between basic and advanced search. In the past, if you crafted a search in advanced search, got to the search results, which takes you to the page with the basic search form at the top, and then went back to advanced, you would lose some of the things that you had set previously, meaning that if you had a particularly complex query setup, it would take some time to recraft that and reactivate all the features that you want in the advanced search form. Now, that actually will follow you. So for example, on the left-hand side, you have the advanced search page. If you were to select something like journal article, that would follow you over to the results and appear there as well. And then if you were to click on that advanced search next to the search box again, you go back to the advanced search page with your options pre-selected. Another NERS feature that we had in 2020 was the ability to integrate the SpringShare database A to Z list within the Summon Results page, making it so that for those resources where your patrons would be best served by going to the database itself, you can find it more easily. As you can see here on the right-hand side of the search results, you have that new database finder. You can simply enter the search phrase that you'd like there, click search, and get a display of whatever resources might be available. And again, it provides a better pathway to discover all databases and all content that you might have available for your patrons. We also did some work around best bets. We heard loud and clear that a lot of you take and put information in your LibAnswers FAQs, and then you take those FAQs and you have to do a copy and paste process to add those to best bets so they also show up in your instance of Summon. By creating this integration, we made it so that it's much easier for you to import those and manage those. We use the LibAnswers API to harvest the LibAnswers and include those into best bets, and we generate keywords using the metadata from those LibAnswers. In order to use this functionality, you go to the admin console and then to the recommender tab, and underneath that SpringShare, and that's where you'd find both the controls to set up that database A to Z list and the ability to harvest these LibAnswer FAQs. You just type in your API URL, your client ID, your secret key. It's always good to test the credentials to make sure that you've got those set up properly. And then if that is set up properly, click on the Harvest LibAnswers button below that, and it will import those FAQs into your best bets. It can take a little bit of time for it to be harvested, so please wait before clicking that button a second time. And then the A to Z controls are just below this LibAnswer setting. Finally, for 2020 in Summon, we did a modification to the Summon analytics. In the past, it was part of Oracle Business Intelligence. Oracle upgraded to a new system called the Oracle Analytics System, or OAS. You can now go in and take a look at that, and all of the reports that were there previously are there currently as well. As you can see, the user interface looks a little bit different. To find the canned or pre-made dashboards and reports, simply click on the catalog button at the top of the right-hand side of the screen. That will give you this page with the folder tree to the left navigate down into shared folders, summon, dashboards, or underneath usage as well. You can find a variety of reports and dashboards to view. For example, here on the screen, you can see one that shows actions with a total number of searches that were done for a given time period. Next, I want to talk a little bit about 360 and Intota Services achievements. 360 and Intota Services were created as the easiest and most effective way to manage your electronic resources. In the last year, we resolved over 2 million links. There are more than 47 million e-journal, ebook, and video titles in the 360 knowledge base. In the Electronic Journal Portal or EJP, we did over 38 million searches in the last year, and libraries have received over 1,700 custom MARC records on a monthly basis. So the 360 KB brings us a variety of value. There are over 41,000 provider databases with regional variations available in the KB, over 600 open access databases, over 7,000 provider hierarchical inheritances, and over 47 million e-journals, e-books, and videos. Another modification we made for Summon Analytics last year was to make it available directly from Client Center. In the past, you had to give someone complete permissions to go all the way and access the admin console. This meant that a lot of people who didn't necessarily need access to that section of Summon had to have it in order to view the analytics. To make things a little bit easier, bring the link a little bit closer to your day-to-day workflow, we've added that to Client Center directly. We also launched our online chat functionality. You can now access live chat support for Summon 360 and Intota Services. This online chat is now available Monday through Friday during the periods of 900 to 1600 hours Berlin time or 900 to 1700 hours San Francisco time. This will give you real-time conversation with a support expert and will hopefully reduce some of that back and forth that you get chatting through email. To get to that live chat, you can access it through an embedded Contact Us link located in 360 Client Center and Intota, or you can bookmark one of the 2 URLs on the screen and access it from there. Don't worry about typing out or writing down these URLs at this moment. We will make sure that this PowerPoint presentation is available to you after the presentation, so you can easily click on it or copy it there. Once you click one of those links, look in the lower right-hand corner of the page that opens to open up the chat. You'll find that right there in the lower right-hand corner. And as a reminder, please submit a support case if you have a larger question around the 360 KB content or the CDI, the Central Discovery Index, any questions you might have there. Some of those that require a little bit more of a deep dive or research will need to have a case open for it, just as previously. But I encourage you, if you're unsure, should I do a chat? Should I do a case? Go ahead and try the chat out. If it turns out that it's something that needs to be converted over to a case, support will be happy to help you do that in the moment they are using the chat. We also did some work on the 360 API. We did some initial performance testing and validation in Q4 with the API. We wanted to make sure that we did an early rollout of this to give you the ability to use this API for reviewing the library's electronic resources and providers. This API provides read-only access to the library profile subscribed providers, databases, titles, and all the metadata associated with those. For the overlap analysis report, we added some functionality there, making it so that you can now search on database name contains as a constraint or criteria when you're looking for to add a database to the comparison list. Previously, we only had database begins with. We also added some information to the various detail pages for content sources. You can now see right there in that red box, the last full updated date is now available. This will help you see when it is that we got the content and when it was last updated within the index, hopefully answering some of your questions that you in the past had to come to us to ask about. So now I'm going to switch to looking forward and see into a little bit of what we have planned for 2021. I'll begin by talking a little bit about the 360 and Intota Services Roadmap. And just as a reminder, the roadmap is provided for informational purposes only. It's to display a high-level view of 360 Intota Services and Intota Assessment's planned future roadmap. It may change throughout the year, though for the most part we do adhere to our roadmap. But as an example, last year for Summon, we shifted some of the we shifted some of the functionality from the May release to other releases due to the nature of the pandemic and the changing times that we had at that point. We don't plan for anything like that to be happening here again in 2021, but it is something to keep in mind. So for 2021, in the first half, we plan to have a rollout of Counter R5 reports, and I'll go over some more details on some of this in a moment. We will make that API just discussed generally available for you. We'll be doing some work around video titles and the 360 Mark update services, making some change to how you can do overlap, get your overlap analysis results, being able to separate those by format, and a view changes export option. In the second half of 2021, we'll be working on filtering out not track titles from the EJP autocomplete suggestions, adding a video-only search option to the EJP, making some enhancements to the 360 link ILL form, providing the option to display most recent coverage options in the EJP, and the ability to upload database detail reports. So 2021 is similar to what we did in 2020 to continue that rollout of Counter R5 reports. What's new is the Intota assessment reports reflecting the new standards, measurements, and metrics. Ebook, e-journal, and database reports will be provided with calculated cost per use, and R5 metrics will be available for custom reports that you create. This means that libraries can take advantage of your e-resource holding metadata for special projects or potential downstream applications. We'll also be taking that API I just spoke about for the 360 services and making that generally available. That's an open API for 360 and Intota libraries to query the details of their library profile holdings. It'll allow you to collect information based on provider, database, or titles. And that means that you'll be able to use that e-resource holding metadata for special projects or downstream applications. We're also doing some work on video titles in the 360 Mark update service. What that means is bibliographic records for video titles will be generated in addition to the current journal and book titles for those 360 Mark customers. These records will adhere to the metadata description best practices for videos and are added, updated, or deleted per existing service processing rules. This means that it will be easier to discover video titles as a format whose usage is surging. Particularly as we've all moved to a lot of remote access or remote use, video has certainly climbed as a content type being accessed through Summon. Something to note is the subscription details for this service will be forthcoming. As I mentioned briefly previously, we are doing some work on the overlap analysis results, so you can now separate those by format rather than intermixing all titles. So you could run an overlap analysis against just one format type or include all format types and then filter those results by format type. It'll make it easier for you to get a view into collection holdings by grouping or like formats together. We'll also be adding to the view changes export option that allows you to view the view changes audit log. This will fill a long-standing enhancement to output audit log details in a spreadsheet-friendly format, making it easier for you to filter, search, and gather basic statistics for the view changes entries. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the summon features under consideration. In particular, I'll focus a little bit on the February release, which is coming up in about 2 weeks, and talk about the Summon 2021 roadmap. And as I mentioned prior, this is to give you a high-level view. One thing that you'll be seeing in my upcoming webinar on February 10th and 11th is the breakdown by quarter of when this functionality will be released. What you'll be seeing today are the planned release dates and the features that we plan to put into those 4 buckets, those 4 quarterly releases. We plan to follow a similar timeline to what we had last year, which is to release on the first Wednesday of each quarter, February 3rd, May 12th. The one exception, that's the second Wednesday of the month. We usually move that back by a week because Luna is traditionally that first week in May, and that gives everyone the chance to be back at your institution during the week that release goes live. Then we'll have one on August 4th and November 3rd. The maintenance releases on all the other months will be on the first Wednesdays when needed. We don't do them every month, but most months we do have a release on that first Wednesday, which is maintenance related. Those releases, for the most part, are transparent to you and the end user. They're changes to internal tools, customer-specific updates, or just general hardware and software updates and maintenance-related functions. If there is something in those maintenance releases that will be visible to you or your end users, we'll certainly call that out so that you're aware of it. But again, that's the exception rather than the rule. So I also want to talk a little bit about the specifics for the February release. That's coming up, like I said, in about 2 weeks on February 3rd. Because we shifted the Q4 release for 2020 to December, it's a much shorter development cycle for this February. The majority of the work here will be coming out will be maintenance work, so it won't be something that you can view. Because of that, there's not going to be a preview environment. The one thing coming out that will be exposed to you and your end patrons is a long requested feature, an update to the APA citation style 7th edition. And that will be available for use in Summon. And I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all the folks in Luna and Igloo who work on the NERS Enhancement Working Group. They have been working with me diligently over the last couple of months, finalizing the list from your votes and your input for inclusion of features in the 2021 roadmap. I have to say for a moment that I appreciate everyone's efforts in making this happen. If you've gone out and added items to the Idea Exchange, which if you're not familiar with the Idea Exchange, that's a place where you can go and post suggested enhancements for Summon, or you can vote on other ones to make sure that they're prominent or they get my attention. I review that every month, and if possible, I pull from that list and add them to the releases when we have space. But every year, at least once a year, we harvest a bunch of the ideas from that Idea Exchange. We use those to build our initial NERS enhancements voting list, and then you, the end users, vote as part of that if you're a member of Luna and Igloo, and then we work through that list to determine what are the ones we can fit on the 2021 roadmap. And I'm happy to present this list of the items for the 2021 roadmap to you today. Again, in a few weeks on the February 10th and 11th, I'll break this down by quarter so you can see exactly when this functionality is coming. But some of the things include separating that book and ebook facet so that you can now focus purely on print or on ebook features. In the past, that was combined. We're also looking at returning all the link options for a given result and allowing you, the client, to configure that. A lot of times you'll subscribe to a single resource through a variety of options. This will make sure that they're all visible there in the results set so that your end user can access them. We're also looking at changing the way we handle misspellings to make it align more with what users have come to expect from sites like Google and Bing and other search engines. Basically, currently the did you mean functionality works in that if you type a word or a phrase that appears to have a misspelling in it, the search results will be returned based on the exact way you typed it. And below that, there's a link that provides a recommended corrected set of search terms So you have to click on that link to then re-execute the search and return the results with that corrected spelling. As I mentioned, a lot of search engines, though, have trained our users to expect that correction to happen automatically. I know that I personally, for some reason, have a hard time typing out the end of words that start with or end with T-I-O-N, and I always flip that N and the O so that my words end with T-I-N-O. Google or Bing will take that, flip it, correct it for me, and then provide a link to go to that misspelled word if I so choose. We'll be aligning more closely with that with this functionality. We're also going to add the ability to apply your easy proxy to the DOI field links and summon search results so that hopefully this will ensure a successful click and access to the content from those search results. We're adding in the ability to designate an exact search for certain fields within the summon user interface. In particular, on the advanced search page, you'll be able to select exact search for certain fields. And then finally, we will be removing the long URL when it's exported from Summon to RefWorks. I know this is an issue that many of you know of. If you're not familiar with it, we construct a very long encrypted URL for the sake of having a permalink or something that's persistent from a linking standpoint. The challenge is, as with most electronic resources, the links can change, the source can change. If you change your content makeup of your subscriptions that you include in Summon, the original source that URL pointed to could go away. The way that URL is constructed, though, it contains a lot of the information about that record that you're looking at, so that when you click on it, it can sort of recreate the search experience that you had and take the person to that resource, regardless of whether you're still still subscribed to that particular source for the resource, or you've moved to a different source for that content. So that's the benefit of that long URL. The problem is when you're creating citations, it's really long. So you can end up with a list of citations that are longer than your paper if you have enough long URLs in there. This functionality will create a short URL to manage that link, that longer link, and allow for a much better looking set of citations. Other things that we're looking at adding is the ability to be a little more nuanced in the way we do returning best bets based on tags. In the past, it had to be an exact match, and if it appeared with other keywords in the search, it would not necessarily trigger that best bets to show up, which meant that you had to be very thorough in the number of tags that you added for best bets. We'll make it so that it shows up when the tag keywords are present anywhere in the search and not just an exact match. On the back end, we're improving the way that you can manage database recommender and the activation process there. Currently, with the huge number of results that or databases that are available, it can be rather cumbersome to manage this piece. And this functionality will be in the admin console and will help you better with the activation process, ranking, and curation of sources. You'll be able to download a spreadsheet, most likely, modify it there, and then upload it again for a bulk change. And I should take a moment to call out to the Database Recommender and Topic Explorer working groups who have been working with me to improve these features, and they've done some great things in helping me finalize some requirements around this and championing this feature. So thank you so much for that. And then finally, we're going to be taking a look at the user interface and doing a light refresh there. It won't be a complete overhaul of the user interface. It will be more of a polish to the UI. The last time we made any kind of sort of complete or comprehensive change was in 2016, so over 4 years ago. And since then, we've added a lot of functionality. The technology used to access the Summon user interface, the browsers, the hardware, the software, all of those things have changed over the years. So we're going to take a look at that and see how can we polish the overall elements of the page, take a look at how the facets work, for example, and see what improvements we can get in there. And also, we'll be taking a look at accessibility and making sure that we're working on accessibility performance and remediation. It's something that we work on all the time and we take seriously, and taking sort of a holistic look of the page will help us do a better job in ensuring everyone and anyone can access Summon in the best way possible. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the Summon and Sierra integration. We did begin some of that work last year, and in the back end, we made some improvements and changes. In 2021, where you're actually going to see the rollout of this functionality. The initial scope of this integration will be to support a single Summon and Sierra institution. It will have the ability to display items and their availability embedded within Summon. It will have the ability to log in to your Sierra account via Summon, allow users to request at both bib and volume level resources, and there'll be a library account section so that a patron can go in and see what the information about their account, including things like the ability to renew, cancel, and edit items that are in that library account. Our overall target for this release will be the end of this year. We'll start off with early access partners, and at the end of March, at the very end of Q1 of this year, we'll have some initial testing and functionality that those folks can view and give us feedback. We'll then take that feedback and also expand on the functionality in the second quarter of 2021, and we expect to have general availability for this integration in the second half of 2021. So stay tuned as we provide more and more details as we go through that process. And speaking of staying tuned, we do have another webinar coming up here in a couple of weeks, and that is the official Summon Roadmap Overview webinar, where we will announce and launch the complete roadmap with a breakdown of releases by quarter and the complete finalized feature list for 2021. Those dates are coming up on February 10th and February 11th. Be sure to take a look at the various times that those are available. They follow the same timing schedule that we have for these today, and there are 3 different ones you can register for. And even if those times don't work, if you register, that means that you will get an email afterwards with a link to the recording so you can view it at your own time. And of course, we always make this material available in the Knowledge Center after the fact. Thanks everybody for taking some time to attend today. If you think of something you forgot to ask about, or you just have something you want to follow up with, as always, feel free to email me directly. You can see my email there on the screen, brent.cook@exlibrasgroup.com. I'm always happy to hear from you, get your feedback on existing features, hear ideas for new features, or just answer questions that you might have. So again, thank you so much for your contribution to Summon. The product is successful because of your engagement and your usage of the product, so I really appreciate that. And let us know what more we can do to help. Thanks, stay well, and have a good day.
And we didn't receive any questions, Brent, so that wraps up the session. Everybody have a great day.
Bye now.